right, cool. Thanks, logo team. I'll be taking you through most my story this evening. So, for as far as I can remember, I don't particularly recall a time of my life before, the abuse started. I think I was too young, really. So I don't have, a before and after comparison point of view, like other, victims that I have spoken to before, who can say, before it happened, I was like this, and then after it changed me in this and this and that way. Okay, so in a nutshell, my awakening to life's journey was just sexually violated from the start. So the environment at home where I grew up was full of fear on most days. The anger retaliations from father made the environment very tense and incited like this nagging sense of anxiety that you just couldn't shake off. The emotional one was the worst. The emotional abuse in the household was just terrible. We weren't allowed to cry or express our feelings in any way, because expression of feelings actually, it might just land in the wrong ears. And then if it does, what would people say? Which was a big thing, which is a big, factor of concern in the environment where I grew up. Father knew that mother was a very proud woman, and he played exactly at that. The fear of tarnishing his stellar public facade until the day he left, actually. So the household was, free of any, it was free of any, um, it's free of any sort of stimulants. I'm talking about like, was the alcohol abuse or anything like that? No, there wasn't. So all this rage and abusive control was actually from a sober mind, and intentional and effective at that, to influencing this whole household system. Growing up in a religiously separated home, the obvious clash of compatibility between my parents, their mental immaturity now, as I look at it really, and the betrayals, repeated betrayals of trust, and the insecurities within both of themselves in each of their own, from their childhoods. I think it's something that I can now observe and say, this was the stem of it all. I am the last of three girls. My elder sister has always been a fighter, very strong. And the one in the middle, I think, was also a victim of abuse too, and just too full of shame to break the silence, even to this day, actually. She hasn't. So when my mother left for her university studies, or as really looking back, I think it was just a vacation from father. She left us in his care. And at that time, it was already a failing, marriage. And as a man, he was failing her. So all I'm saying is, like, don't leave a child, a girl or a boy, with someone who's already displaying such behaviors, behaviors of lack of self-control, because father was already sexually violent with her, with the nannies, the friends, the neighbors, like everybody really who he could take advantage of. So like, yeah, leaving us in his care would amount to be one of the most irresponsible decisions of her life. Because in her absence, the sexual grooming and violent adaptations were now just forced onto us, our helpless selves, left, right, and center, on our fragile minds and bodies. And there was just no way to seek help. On the weekend visits, when mother comes through from varsity on the weekends, there'd just be endless undeserved punishments, gaslighting, beatings, just to keep us in check, keep us in line. And what she didn't know is that she's reinforcing what happens during the week in her absence. So the visual cycle just kept gaining momentum with nowhere to break free. Like little Dineo inside me just being crushed in silence, fearful, like all these monsters that are in her waking space that are actually supposed to love and protect little Dineo. So on the daily, I would just be aimlessly standing by, waiting for that cutting eye from father, the words of indirect promise of hurt that's soon to follow. If I dare do something out of line, the hopeless 2-minute wins that are just followed by epic disappointments after that, unbearable heaviness of guilt, the abandonment, the neglect, I'm just left so empty, really. So I've always wondered, I remember when I was young, like, when are my real parents coming to fetch me? I kept wondering, did they leave me here and perhaps, I don't know, wherever they were going to run an errand, did they die? Is that why they can't come back and collect me? Like, could my real parents be dead? Because this pair that I have here, it's not them. Yeah. So, yeah, that was that. And then naturally, we'd follow then mother's religion, and then father would go off and do her own things. And then in that, there was a big phenomena of paradise earth. And that was so promising, because mother always said in paradise, when we get there would be no more hurt, regrets, pain, and death. And I mean, what a classic in light of now knowing and understanding Dr. Frankel's insights on the tragic triad. Like, yeah, I had it. It was indirectly spoken to me even when I was young, you know. Anyway, so I grew on to be a delightful young girl, always in high spirits, ready to help. I was always ready to please. And I mean, at the heart of all of this was just being naive, you know, always seeking out a mother to protect me with each fitting encounter. Yeah. And on the other hand, as well, I continued to grow on to be a sexually inclined young girl, always ready to seduce, ready to satisfy, and a covenant of secrecy and deceit at the center of it all. Seeking a father to protect me from each man that looked my way. So the IVF stopped, I think, just before puberty, and things sort of just continued as if nothing ever happened. They got divorced when I was in grade 10. That's standard 8 sort of thing. And at that time, I mean, I had already have like one attempted suicide under my belt. Life was hard, but I knew there's a reason why I didn't die. I knew that I had to survive by all means possible. um I was always an intelligent an intelligent smart girl with a big personality, quite studious. My performance in school was never concerned because I was smart. I started drinking and smoking, and it felt fantastic. It gave me the relief of the staff criticism. It was delicious, and I kept going back for more intoxication, more temporary escapes, at freedom, Yeah, I wanted to be free. I wanted to be free, any chance of just being free. And if it was to be high, sure, let's go for it, Freedom, I was craving that in my soul. So as we know, a high freedom doesn't last. So I knew that I had to find something more withstanding and continuously rewarding, something that lasts, So I didn't stand outside the door of despair and knock for too long in my life experiences. I always had to find a way out of the mess, pave another way. Always picking up my battles, and fighting them. And I didn't even know that I was doing that while I was doing it. I was so young, but looking back, I can clearly see that I was just moving mountains and I didn't even realize it. But it was all to reach my ultimate life's purpose. So I stuck it out. I matriculated and got a bursary. I graduated varsity and started working. I, reached my materialistic goals, that we all have when we start working, because I was committed to being self-reliant and independent. And on a spiritual level, my compass was that I am a spiritual being fulfilling an earthly purpose, on the spiritual side. So I didn't have a religious dogma to serve at that time, until I was sleeping one day and it came back to me. I realized, I remembered everything from my childhood, almost like finding the source, the root cause of all the nonsense. And once again, I took to the bottle. I kept drinking my way out of it. I remember that, look, you know what? I was abused. I was abused, and it was in this way by a father. And, I just wanted to drink. Like, my gosh, it just came back to me in heaps and bounds. Until I finally chose to face the demon, I decided to go into therapy. And that was the best move for my life. I shrinked for like 6 years, but I kept asking the shrink, why did all these abusive occurrences have to happen to me? Why me? And she replied, if not you, then who? And then she introduced me to logotherapy. At that time, it was still through UNISA. I didn't take the course. I looked it up, but I didn't sign up. you know, um, until 8 years later, when I think I was feeling a little bit more ready, I was then seeing a life coach. Again, in our sessions, our discussion ended up at logotherapy, and she gave me a little blue pamphlet. And this time it was already under FISA, you know. Um, I mean, clearly that's when life is partnering with you. I reached out to Pan, and that's when the journey began. I held myself accountable to climb out of this rut I was in. It was all up to me. The emotional turmoil, I wasn't going to collapse into victim mode. So I was actively choosing to survive. Um, so in the powerful material that I found in logotherapy, I learned about the pointless suffering, and it healed me, by positioning the hurt as a stepping stone to reach glorious greatness. Logotherapy helped me make peace with my life situations, which I thought were more befitting for another. I always asked, why me? So if not me, who else should be going through this? So logotherapy showed me to own the suffering and not let it own me. I learned that in my life, the cost of my sufferings have actually taught me about love, compassion, patience, a holistic appreciation of the self, to stop seeking love externally, but to look within, to manage expectations, so that I can minimize disappointments, to learn to walk away and let God transform difficult situations in my life, to stop chasing to build connections with people that won't nurture these kind of bonds. I learned that I'm now more aware of areas where I am naive, and I'm working on taking charge and being more objective in those areas. And that there is great power in silence, and it has nothing to do with being passive. I learned that I can only control what I create. And to forgive myself for holding on to the hope that the past could have been any different. This one was a game changer for me, because I was always hoping that it should have been someone else. But as soon as I forgave myself for that, I swear I saw things differently. I learned that hurt people know what they're doing, and I always have a choice of choosing my own mental health and resilience. You know, I can now give that love to my husband, to my child. That there's no shame in saying I'm sorry, you know, and finding my own voice and sharing my childhood trauma is actually something that unburdens me and also gives permission for others to unburden their own situations and their story through talking. So because I survived the suffering in my life, I can now, you know, enjoy and take measures in inspiring other children out there so that they don't feel as alone as I felt growing up, going through all these hurtful experiences on my own, you know. Um, I learned that the best version of me is also still in the making. You know, I just have to love who I already am. Um, I learned that my cup has to be full first in order to share my love with other people and to be authentic and to understand myself and be consistent as I grow to be better in this journey of my life. So today I have a YouTube channel I call it Roaring Lotus, which is a platform that I share and inspire other people to survive as well, you know, to choose to survive. Um, I also volunteer at a child trauma center, and it fills my heart with treasures and you know, just blessings from above, you know, because today I am Dineo Monareng, and I am an adult survivor of childhood abuse. Thank you for affording me the time to take you through my journey and encounter with logotherapy. Thank you.
Well, there's so much to say. But I would like people to give their feedback, and I will summarize in the end, please.
Hi, Dineo. Thank you so much for sharing. Very brave of you and well done. You've come a long way, and it's still it's a fun journey.
Hi, Dineo.
Hi, Marilyn.
I'm still waiting for your assignment. You are an absolute blessing of a student, and just hearing you tonight share your story, that's what I saw part of that in your first assignment. And I know that you are reworking the second assignment, but all praise to you. Thank you for sharing it. What a journey. And through all of this, just this essence of you and your strength comes through. And an absolute privilege to be in your company this evening. Thank you.
Well, Pan, you must feel such kinship with Dineo. Have you got anything to say?
Yes, I do. I've very much, the journey with her in the Optimal Living course was just something, it was phenomenal. It was as much healing and beautiful for me as I think it might have been for her as well. And just love work. I love how authentic she is, and yeah, what a story. Such a story, and such a beautiful person that has come from it. Love you, Dineo. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Love you too.
Well, you know, it's not just logotherapy. It's the person through whom that logotherapy comes. I know it's true that many students say, you know, reading Viktor Frankl and how it impacted on their life. But I'm telling you, it's the impact of another logotherapist on the student's life that actually, or on a client's life, that makes all the difference. Otherwise, it's a theory and it appeals and it speaks to you, but it only becomes real in an encounter of sharing. And I think, isn't it phenomenal? And I think we should be quite awed by the fact that somebody like Dineo should have enrolled. She could have started with the basic course, you know. And Marilyn, you're taking her further on the journey and you've already made your impact on her. I can see it from the broad and wonderful smile in greeting you. But the journey had begun before that with Pan. And I'm absolutely awed. I have to kind of control myself here. But because it's so overwhelming to see the truth, which I've said to students in preparing them to become logotherapists, and when they started out on their journey and they were kind of afraid of meeting clients and are they good enough to do so, and to say that nothing in life is just happenstance or arbitrary. You know, if Frankl says that life is unconditionally meaningful, it means that every situation, but absolutely every situation, has meaning. And even if it's from the negative side, to, like we've seen in Dineo's story so magnificently, and Ben, your own story has got such correlations that nothing can really destroy the human spirit and who we essentially are. And as Frankl said, that we know we are connected to. And we know somehow that we've been brought into this life not just as a throwaway something, but there's something waiting for us. That connection has almost kept us through those very dark and turbulent years. And you see it in Dineo's story. You know, there was Marin, you picked it up. There's such a strength there. There's such a resilience there. My word, that Dineo can actually said, instead of why me, well, why not me? Am I not up to this challenge? And this is my challenge, because working through it, look what Dineo is doing these days. She can speak to traumatized children. She can speak to those who feel like she did, so abused, so neglected, so thrown aside, but, and connected to that unscathed human spirit that shone through her life. My word, even mother's religion in terms of a paradise, it connected to her. And that this journey through the pain comes to an end where pain is overcome, and where it's and what caused it is defeated. In the triumphant reaching out to those who suffer. My word, that leads to paradise. It certainly does. And there's no way to get to that paradise without this, without overcoming what is so wrong and what Frankl called what ought not to be, with what ought to be. You overcome what ought not to be by what ought to be. And that is what makes you grow in human stature and become authentically yourself. You know, listening to Dineo's story, didn't you sense you know, even if you should have met her at any point along the horrible journey that she went, that she was there, that you could recognize her. I mean, you know, there it was. She was this strong personality, and you know, she performed well at school. And despite the turbulence on the other side, and the wish for her own parents to appear, what was that wish? These parents are not the parents that are supposed to be. They are not what they ought to have been. And there are parents, and there is a world that I can reach out to, where I can meet people who can speak to me in ways that would make me feel wanted, seen, connected to them, and can see my uniqueness. And the the journey through her optimal living course with Pan, that was her healing. And Pan, you were brought into the situation that you are for a time such as this, for a time with Dineo. And, you know, the wonderful saying, saving one life is like saving the whole world, because this is what the world ought to be like. It healed and restored and beautiful. So thank you, thank you. It's a most amazing story, not just from Dineo's side, but from her healing and studying logotherapy, but in a real interactive way with someone like Pan. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, so wonderful to see the real person emerge, isn't it? It's quite incredible. It's almost as if right at the outset of our lives, we were already who we are now, and we just had to become that dormant potential person. But it's almost like who you are, Dineo, was gifted into life. It was gifted into life. It was there. And it's like a statement. Okay, this is Dineo. Now, let all the forces, let a holocaust of experience happen to her. She's going to emerge. Oh, wow. You know, there's a bigger undertaking in our life. It's not just us. It's the faith that's been invested in our creation, the purpose that was put there, and that, wow, that actually presents a challenge of forces that work against it. In fact, those very forces are made servants to actually provoke and bring out the protest and bring out the longing and bring out, no, this is not what I am going to remain to be, an abused person. No. And coming to a point of saying, yes, this is me. Wow, it's the emergence of the potential person that is such a magnificent thing to behold. And, you know, you just gave me a new insight and confidence into the fact that we've been gifted to this world as the person that we eventually become. But it was there right from the start.
Surya?
Yes.
We have 6 minutes left and Dr. Kanda's hand is up.
Please, Kanda.
Oh, so thank you very much. Very quickly, I'm sorry. I had a very, very unstable connection. Dineo, Pen, Marlene, and Terea, thank you very much for bringing this together. I'm so grateful. Mine was just because of time. I just want to ask or say two things. One is how suffering and abuse pushes us into isolation and alienation. So we are totally alienated, sometimes even toward ourselves. And the healing is about going beyond that. But what I wanted to ask Dineo, and I've learned, this is something I've learned from Penn. I'm just thinking or dreaming that you might do some work, both of you, is the experience of calling. Just feeling that life is calling you. Like Terea, if you have been with Terea for some time, you hear that, Adam, where are you? So I don't know if you had that experience of being just called. Life is calling you. Yeah. And I don't know if you've been with traditional healers as well. Sometimes they say, unale moya. So I don't know if you've had any connection with that. Thank you. Sorry if I've gone out of place.
That's all right. Are we finished?
Carol, are you going to renew the Zoom time?
I will do whatever you like. I did have a meeting just after this with Dr. Kanda, and I had problems opening this meeting. So if we could finish,
I think that let's Dida, so sorry, but rather let's put our thoughts on email and discuss it further this way, because I actually want to develop this theme, and I'm going to write down my perceptions about what I really felt was just quickly getting to Kanda. The call is there right from the word go, not later. It is there. We sense it and we respond to it and we look for it and eventually we hear it. But it was from the word go. So I want to pin those thoughts down, and I'd love comments from everyone, because I think this needs to be written up. Dineo, I'll consult with you too, but it needs to be written up in this way. It's quite unique. Okay. So let's say goodbye to each other, Dida. Sorry, but I think
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so very
That's
much.
fine.
We are in awe, that area. We
Thank
are all in
you.
awe.
Yes.
And
thank you. Thank you, Dineo. Thank you.
Wow. Thank
best
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The best therapists are the wounded healer.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Oh, this
Thanks
means
so
a lot
much.
to me. The feedback means a lot. Thank you.